Have you ever thought that just by watching movies, you can become fluent in English? You watch your favorite show every single night. You understand the jokes. You even laugh at the right moment. And then, one day, someone asks you a simple question in English, and your mind goes completely blank. Why does this happen? Today, we are going to talk about one of the biggest myths in English learning. The idea that you can learn English only by watching movies and TV shows. Many English learners believe that movies are a kind of magic key. They think, if I watch enough Hollywood movies, one day I will just wake up and speak like a native speaker. It sounds nice. It sounds easy. It sounds relaxing because you don't have to do any real work. You just sit on your sofa, eat some snacks, and your English magically improves. But the reality is very, very different. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you watch football or soccer every single day. You watch every World Cup match. You know every player's name. You understand every rule of the game perfectly. You can even predict the tactics before they happen. Does this mean you can become a professional footballer? Of course not. Watching football makes you a great fan, a great supporter, but not a great player. The exact same thing happens with English. Watching makes you a great audience member, not a great speaker. Think about bodybuilding for a second. If you watch hundreds of videos of bodybuilders lifting heavy weights, will your own muscles grow? No, they will not. Your muscles only grow when you lift the weight, when you feel the burn, when you do the repetitions, set after set, week after week. Watching someone else sweat in the gym does nothing for your own body. Or think about basketball. You can watch thousands of NBA games. You can memorize every player's statistics. You can argue about who is the greatest player of all time. But if you have never touched a basketball in your life, you cannot make a single clean shot. Your arms don't know the movement. Your hands don't know the feeling of the ball. And here is one more example, a very practical one that I really like: driving a car. Imagine you watch hundreds of videos of someone driving. You watch how they turn the steering wheel. You watch how they check the mirrors. You watch how they park perfectly between two other cars. You understand everything, in theory, in your head. But the very first time you sit behind the wheel, your hands will shake. You won't remember which pedal is the brake and which one is the gas. You will probably panic a little bit. Why does this happen, even though you watched so many driving videos? Because driving is a skill, not information. You learn driving by driving, not by watching driving. English is exactly the same. English is a skill, not just information sitting in your head. Now, let's go a little deeper, because there is real science behind this, and I did some research for this video. So let's look at the evidence. There is a very famous theory in linguistics called the input hypothesis, created by a researcher named Krashen. Krashen says that we acquire language when we receive what he calls comprehensible input, which means language that we can understand, slightly above our current level. And movies genuinely are a great source of comprehensible input. This part is actually true, and I don't want you to think movies are useless. Watching movies can help you learn new vocabulary, hear real native pronunciation, and get used to natural speaking speed instead of the slow, robotic speed in textbooks. In fact, there is an interesting study from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Researchers compared European countries that use subtitles in movies to countries that dub movies into their own language. And the countries that watch subtitled movies, meaning they hear the original English audio while reading subtitles, scored noticeably higher on English proficiency tests at a national level across the whole population. There is also research from the University of East Anglia showing that same language subtitles produce large vocabulary gains for learners. So yes, movies do help. Subtitles do help. I am not telling you to stop watching movies. But here is the real problem, and this is the part that most English learners completely ignore. Input alone is not enough, and we know this from real, solid research, not just my personal opinion. I also want to mention something called the illusion of competence. This happens when you watch a movie with subtitles. You understand the story perfectly, and your brain tells you, "Great job, you understood everything. You must be improving really fast." But understanding a story while reading subtitles is a completely different mental skill from producing a sentence out loud, from your own memory, in real time, with no subtitles to help you. Your brain feels comfortable, so it assumes it is learning. But comfort and real progress are not always the same thing. This is exactly why so many learners watch hundreds of hours of English shows over many years and still feel stuck at the exact same speaking level. Maybe right now you are thinking, "But I know someone who learned English just from watching Friends or just from watching American movies." And yes, this does happen sometimes. But if you look closely at these people, almost always, they were doing much more than passive watching. They were repeating lines out loud, just for fun, without even knowing it had a name. They were quoting their favorite characters to friends. They were singing along with songs. They were, without realizing it, accidentally shadowing. The watching itself wasn't the magic. The repeating and the speaking out loud was the real magic, hidden inside the fun. There is a researcher named Merrill Swain. In the 1980s, she studied something called French immersion programs in Canada. These are English-speaking children who study almost all of their school subjects in French, math, science, history, everything, all in French, for years and years. These kids received a massive, constant amount of input. They listened to French all day, every day, for their entire school life. And guess what happened? After years of this, the kids could understand French extremely well, almost like native speakers. Their listening was excellent. But when it was time to actually speak, they struggled badly. Their speaking was full of mistakes. Their fluency was weak and slow. Why did this happen? After years of input, because these kids were never really forced to produce the language. They only received language. They almost never had to give it back, out loud, under pressure. Swain called her discovery the output hypothesis. Her idea is simple and very powerful. Comprehensible input is necessary, yes, but it is not enough on its own. You also need what she calls comprehensible output, meaning you need to actually speak, make real mistakes, and notice the gap between what you want to say and what you can actually say in that moment. This is exactly what happens to English learners who only watch movies. They understand everything on the screen. They laugh at the jokes. They cry at the sad scenes. But the moment they need to speak in real life, they freeze. Their brain goes blank. Sound familiar? So, what is the solution? If watching alone is not enough, what should we actually do instead? The answer is a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a sentence, maybe from a movie, a podcast, or a YouTube video, and you repeat it immediately afterward, trying to copy the pronunciation, the rhythm, and the intonation, almost like you are the actor's own shadow. That is exactly why it is called shadowing. And this is not just some random trend that influencers invented for views. Shadowing has real, serious, scientific backing. Researchers like Yo Hamada have published several studies showing that shadowing significantly improves pronunciation, listening comprehension, and overall fluency. One study conducted in Taiwan found that university students who practiced shadowing showed major improvements in their speech rate, and they had far fewer hesitations, meaning they spoke faster, with fewer awkward pauses. Another study from Vietnam, conducted at a medical university, compared two groups of students over 4 weeks. One group learned using the traditional method, just listening and getting explanations from a teacher. The other group used shadowing practice instead. After only 4 weeks, the shadowing group showed clearly, measurably better speaking results than the traditional group. Why does shadowing work so well when simple watching does not? Because shadowing forces your mouth, your tongue, and your brain to actually produce the real sounds of English in real time, immediately. It builds what scientists call muscle memory for your speech organs, the exact same way that practicing a sport builds muscle memory in your legs or your arms. Your mouth and your jaw literally learn the physical movements needed to make English sounds that probably don't exist in your own native language. So, here is the key lesson of this entire video. Watching a movie passively, just enjoying the story for fun, is great for entertainment. And yes, it does add a little bit to your input. But if your real goal is to actually speak English fluently, you simply cannot just watch and hope for the best. You need to pause the video. You need to repeat the sentence out loud. And sometimes, you need to repeat that exact same sentence 5 times, 10 times, even 20 times, until your mouth can produce it smoothly, with the correct rhythm and the correct pronunciation, without thinking about it. This is exactly the difference between a casual fan and a true professional. A casual fan watches the match once and moves on with their day. A professional football player studies the same 5 seconds of footage again and again, the same pass, the same movement, until their body can repeat it perfectly without conscious thinking. That, my friend, is what real, deliberate practice actually looks like. So here is what I want you to start doing differently, starting today. First, stop watching entire long movies passively if your real goal is learning, not just entertainment. Use much shorter clips instead, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, and focus deeply on a few specific sentences inside that short clip. Second, actually use the repeat feature. Most apps, and even YouTube itself, let you loop a single sentence over and over. Listen to it once carefully, then immediately repeat it out loud, copying the exact same speed, the exact same emotion, and the exact same stress on words as the original actor. Third, please don't worry too much about understanding every single word in a sentence. Worry instead about producing the sound correctly with your own mouth. Understanding mostly comes from input, but real speaking comes from output. And output means your mouth physically has to move again and again. Fourth, record yourself sometimes using your phone. Then compare your own voice to the original native speaker. This is exactly the noticing process that Swain talked about in her research. You notice the small gap between what you actually said and what the native speaker said. And that exact gap is where real learning quietly happens. Fifth, and this is important, don't feel guilty about watching movies just for fun, in a relaxed way, without any studying at all. That is still valuable because it keeps you motivated. It keeps you connected to the language. And research even shows that students who use shows like Netflix to learn report higher motivation. And motivation is a huge part of long-term success. Just be honest with yourself about what that relaxed watching actually gives you, and don't expect speaking fluency to magically appear from it alone. Keep your fun movie nights, but add separate, focused shadowing sessions on top of them. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes a day. And that combination is where the real transformation happens. Now, before we finish this episode, I genuinely want to hear from you. In the comments below this video, tell me, what is the last movie or TV show that you personally watched? Just write the name of the movie in English or in Persian. It really doesn't matter to me. I want to know what all of you are watching these days. And maybe, just maybe, I will choose some of your favorite movies for a future shadowing practice video right here on this channel. So go ahead, pause for 1 second, and write your answer in the comments right now before you forget. So, to sum up everything we talked about today, movies are an amazing tool for English learners. They give you real input, real native pronunciation, and real culture, all wrapped together in an entertaining story. But movies alone will never make you fluent. The same exact way that watching football will never make you a professional footballer. Watching bodybuilders will never build your own muscles. And watching someone else drive will never give you your own driving license. English is a skill, and every single skill on this planet is built through practice, repetition, and real output, not through passive watching alone. So next time you sit down to watch your favorite English show, please don't just watch it. Shadow it. Repeat it. Speak it out loud, even if you feel a little silly doing it alone in your room. If this video helped you understand something new today, please give it a like. Subscribe to this channel for more practical, honest English lessons. And don't forget to leave your comment below, telling me your favorite movie or the last one you watched. I will see you in the next video. And remember this one simple sentence. Don't just watch English, speak it.